to the Radio Reading Room, Stories of Americana Halloween Classics. I'm your host and reader, Myron Hieronymous Thomas. In this episode, we're going to feature a story that I wrote, but I based it on an old campfire story. Now, I have certainly embellished it and expanded it a great deal from what it was when I first heard it as a lad, when my cousin told it to me when we were about 10 years old. It's called The Ghost with Two White Eyes. On a chilly fall evening, nearly 10 years after the Civil War, a weary traveler on horseback was making his way along a narrow trail in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, on his way to his home in southeastern Ohio, from a business trip he had taken to West Virginia. The autumn sun had just set, leaving an eerie orange cast across the trail, which was covered in red, yellow, and orange leaves. Dark clouds were rolling in, and he could smell the odor of rain on its way. As he passed through a narrow stretch of trail and rounded a sharp curve, he noticed the outline of an old, run-down house on a knoll just about 100 yards ahead. Perhaps this is a place I can rest for the night, he thought. With that, he gave his horse a sharp kick on the shanks. "Giddy up, old boy. It looks like we might find shelter for the night." His trusty steed quickened his pace, and he soon found himself on a vine-covered trail approaching the house, and with great relief noticed a sign hanging haphazardly above the door of the house which read, "Hotel Rooms, by the night or week." He reined in his horse, tied him to a post at the front porch, and entered the front door. There was a distinct odor that he could not place. It was sour and distasteful. But he made his way to the front desk, and noting a sign that read, "Ring bell for service," he did so. Ding, 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 the bell rang out, and an old man, hunched over, walking with a cane, came out from a room behind the desk. "Good evening, sir," said the old man with a smile. His teeth were as gnarled and crooked as his back. "How may I help you?" The traveler replied, "I have been traveling a long distance and am in need of a place to stay for the night, and a place for my horse to bed down." "Ah," said the clerk, "your horse can stay in the barn. We have fresh hay for a bed and barley for him to eat. As for you, I'm afraid we only have one room available. It may not be to your liking." "Well, why would it not be to my liking?" the traveler questioned. "If the room is dry and the bed is clean, I'm sure it will be fine." "Well, sir, you should know that the room is haunted. We believe it's the spirit of a rebel soldier killed in a skirmish at Roquebelock, Ohio, not far from this old hotel. He was one of a band of Confederate soldiers known as Morgan's Raiders. They called them that because they were led by that old Confederate Brigadier General John Morgan of Kentucky, the scoundrel. I remember it well. It was in the summer of 1863, 10 years ago this summer past. They invaded our state coming in from Indiana and made it up to the northeast corner of Ohio, leaving a trail of burned bridges, stole horses, stole food, and terrorizing the country folk until they were captured up there near Lake Erie at West Point, Ohio. We call this one The Ghost with the Two White Eyes." "Nonsense!" exclaimed the traveler. "Show me to the room. I don't believe in ghosts." "Very well, then. Martha!" he shouted toward the back of the room. "Come show this man to room 13A." With that, an old woman, equally as bent and decrepit as the hotel clerk, came out of the shadows and approached the traveler. "Right this way, young man, right this way." The traveler followed her down a dimly lit hallway and then up a steep flight of stairs. There was a light ahead at the top of the stairway. He could not see where the light was coming from. The covering on the floor was old and ragged. The paint on the walls was chipped and peeling. They had now reached the top of the stairway. There was only one door on this floor. It was directly ahead of him.
"This is the room,"
the old lady said.
13A.
The numbers and letters were half falling off the door. She opened it with a long, eerie creak.
"There's a pitcher with water on the credenza for you to freshen up. Have a good night. Pleasant dreams."
When she had left, the traveler looked around the room. There was one lighted oil lamp at the side of the bed that cast an amber hue and eerie shadows across the room. "Oh, well," whispered the traveler to himself, "I am too tired to worry about anything but sleep." He undressed and got into bed, pulling the covers over his head, and closed his eyes. All of the day's events were whirling across his brain as he attempted to fall asleep. Just as he was beginning to doze off, he heard a groan coming from inside the room. "Ooh!" "What?" he demanded. "Who is there? What do you want?" He was then horrified to see appear before him the apparition of a young man, maybe in his mid-20s. Just as the old man had said, he was dressed in a Confederate uniform, the private insignia on his arm faded but visible. This apparition was transparent in its appearance, and its eyes were colorless. They glowed a bright white, as if a light were shining from inside its skull. "I am the ghost with the two wide eyes," it howled. "I am the ghost with the two wide eyes." "What do you want with me?" stammered the traveler, now shaking with fear. "I am the ghost with the two wide eyes," was the reply. "I want your eyes for myself." That was all the traveler could take. He jumped out of bed, grabbed his trousers and shirt, and rushed out the door, dressing as he ran down the stairs, out the door to the barn. He saddled his trusty steed and with a flurry hopped on his back. "Come on, old boy, run as fast as you've ever run and get me out of here." His steed responded as he was asked and sped out of the barn down the road at a full gallop, leaving the barn and hotel far behind them. The old desk clerk, watching this out the window, scratching his chin and cackling a laugh, said,
"Hee hee hee hee, there goes another one. I told him the room was haunted. They never learn. Hee 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 hee."
The next night, a similar occurrence took place when another weary traveler approached the desk. He was met by the same clerk and told the very same thing.
"We only have one room, but it's haunted."
Again, he told the tale of the poor Confederate soldier. This traveler, too, did not believe in ghosts and took the room. The old woman led him up the same dimly lit stairway to the same room, 13A. As the first traveler, he prepared for bed, slipped between the covers, and was ready to fall asleep when, just as he was beginning to doze off, he heard a groan coming from inside the room. "Ooh!" "What?" he demanded. Who is there? What do you want?" As the traveler before him, he was then horrified to see the same apparition, the ghost of a young man, maybe in his mid-20s, dressed in a Confederate uniform, the private insignia on his arm faded but visible. It was transparent in its appearance, and its eyes were colorless. They glowed a bright white light, as if a light were shining from inside its skull. "I am the ghost with the two wide eyes," it howled. "I am the ghost with the two wide eyes." Whoa, what do you want with me?" stammered the traveler, now shaking with fear. I am the ghost with the two white eyes, was the reply. I want your eyes for myself. As the previous traveler, this one ran from the hotel, out into the night, and down the trail that had brought him there. And once again, the old desk clerk, watching this out the window, scratching his chin and cackling a laugh, muttered to himself,
Hee 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 hee! There goes another one. I told 'em the room was haunted. They never learn. Hee 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 hee!
The following night, another weary traveler made his way to the hotel and rang the bell at the front desk. Once again, the crooked old man came from a room behind the desk. His first observation was that something was different about this man. He was big, about 6 feet 5 inches tall, broad at the shoulders and narrow at the hips. His beard was full and thick. He wore a beaver pelt hat, a deerskin coat, and deerskin pants. Across his back was a bundle of beaver pelts, obviously recently captured. He was a true mountain man fur trapper, an intimidating figure to say the least.
How may I help you?
Asked the clerk, smiling his crooked smile. The traveler replied with a deep, strong voice, I've been traveling a long distance, and I'm in need of a place to stay for the night, and a place for my horse to bed down.
Ah, said the clerk, your horse can stay in the barn. We have fresh hay for a bed and barley for him to eat. As for you, I'm afraid we only have one room available. It may not be to your liking.
Why would it not be to my liking? If the room is dry and the bed is clean, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, sir, you should know that the room is haunted by the ghost with the two wide eyes.
Again, he told the tale of the poor Confederate soldier. Nonsense! Exclaimed the mountain man. Show me to the room. I don't believe in ghosts.
Very well, then. Martha,
he shouted toward the back of the room.
Come show this man to room 13A.
With that, the old woman came out of the shadows and approached the mountain man.
Right this way, young man. Right this way.
Never mind, said the mountain man. Just point me in the direction and I'll find it myself.
Very well,
replied the old woman.
It's right at the top of these stairs.
Thank you, ma'am, he replied. He then made his way up the dimly lit stairway, each step creaking under him as his sighs strained the old boards that lay beneath. He entered the room, 13A, and was met with the same amber light cast from the same lamp beside the bed, the flickering flame casting strange shadows on the walls. He proceeded to pull off his boots and deerskin pants and coat, place his beaver pelt hat on the bedpost, unbutton his shirt, and crawl into bed. His feet were hanging over the bottom of the bed as he was bigger than the bed was. I'm so tired, I'm going to sleep like a rock, he sighed and closed his eyes. Just as he was dozing off, as the travelers before him, he was awakened by the same apparition, the ghost of a young man, maybe in his mid-20s, dressed in a Confederate uniform, the private insignia on his arm faded but visible. It was transparent in its appearance, and its eyes were colorless. They glowed a bright white, as if a light were shining from inside its skull. I am the ghost with the two white eyes, it howled. I am the ghost with the two white eyes. What do you want with me? Shouted back the mountain man, sitting up on the edge of the bed. I am the ghost with the two white eyes, was the reply. I want your eyes for myself. Unlike the previous travelers, the mountain man jumped out of bed, put on his beaver pelt hat, and walked up to the ghost with the two white eyes, standing nose to transparent nose. The mountain man stared into those two bright white eyes and exclaimed, Well, listen up.
and listen up good. I'm an Appalachian mountain man, and I'm here to get some sleep. So I'm telling you right now, you better shut up and get out of here, or you're gonna end up being the ghost with the two black eyes.
The mountain man then turned, put his beaver pelt hat back on the bedpost, and got back into bed and fell asleep. The ghost with the two wide eyes was shocked. No one had ever talked to him like that. He was now shaking in fear, as the previous travelers had been. He turned and floated out the window as fast as he could with a mournful howl. Now this time, the old desk clerk, who was again watching out the window, was shocked to see the ghost floating off into the sky and disappearing into the night. Scratching his chin and cackling a laugh, he said,
Hee hee hee. I guess when it comes to bullying ghosts, it takes a big old Appalachian mountain man fur trapper to face 'em down and call their bluff. Hee 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 hee.
The ghost with the two wide eyes. So that's an example of how to stand up to a bully. It can be a ghost or just somebody who's bullying you in any situation. That's all the time we have today in the Radio Reading Room. We hope that you'll join us again for more stories of Americana. And we remind you to be sure and place us in your library so you can get updates on future episodes. Until the next time, I'm your host and reader, Myron Hieronymous Thomas, wishing you pleasant dreams.